The air smelled sharp with frost as the shuttle touched down on the outskirts of New Halden, a human settlement on a distant frontier world. The colony was small, made mostly of metal huts and solar panels, but it hummed with life. Workers moved between buildings carrying tools, machines, and crates of food. Among them, a lone human stood waiting by the landing pad, his boots crunching in the icy gravel. His name was Eli Ward, a widower, a mechanic, and a man who had long stopped expecting the world to care about him. He had lived in solitude for years, ever since his wife had died in the war that reshaped Earth's outer colonies. The grief had carved deep lines into his face, and his eyes often held a shadow that no light could fully erase. Today, however, he was not alone in expectation. The shuttle's door hissed open and a figure stepped out, wrapped in a thin cloak that did little to protect her from the cold. She was not human. Her skin had a soft violet hue, faintly shimmering in the morning sun. Her eyes were silver, reflective and watchful, and her long hair seemed almost liquid in its movement. She looked young, fragile, yet there was a tension in her body, a wariness born of a life filled with distrust. She was Lyra, a bastard daughter of the Xerian nobility, sold to Eli by alien traders who saw her as nothing more than property to be moved from one buyer to the next. As she descended from the shuttle, she hesitated, her small hands clutching the edges of her cloak. The cold bit at her skin, but it was nothing compared to the fear that surged within her. Xyrians rarely traveled beyond their own worlds, and humans were told in hushed whispers to be cruel, cold, and unfeeling. For years she had been warned that her life would never be her own, that anyone who claimed her would do so for their gain, and that escape was impossible. Yet here she was, standing before a human who looked at her without chains, without weapons, without any of the threats she expected. Eli took a step forward, his voice calm and steady. "Lyra?" he asked, as if her name alone could anchor her in this strange new world. She flinched at the sound of her name spoken aloud, yet the tone carried no malice. Slowly she nodded, keeping her eyes downcast. He offered a coat thick and warm, meant to cover her delicate frame. She hesitated before taking it, unsure if it was a trick, but the weight of it around her shoulders felt safe. Eli nodded once and gestured toward the small farmhouse he had built for himself on the edge of the colony. "Inside," he said. "You'll be safe there." The house was simple, with metal walls, a low ceiling, and a fire pit at its center. It smelled of oil, wood, and faint spices, the remnants of meals he had cooked over the past week. Eli showed her to a small room with a narrow bed and a wooden chest for her belongings. Lyra's eyes roamed over the unfamiliar furniture, and a strange emotion twisted in her chest. Curiosity, perhaps, or maybe the first glimmer of hope she had felt in years. "Dinner will be ready soon," Eli said. Not demanding, not commanding, simply informing. She nodded silently, still clutching her cloak. The evening came quickly. Snow swirled outside the windows, the wind whistling like 1,000 restless voices. Eli prepared a simple meal, porridge with dried fruit and meat, and Lyra watched in silence. She had never seen humans cook like this before, carefully, patiently, as if each action mattered. When he placed a bowl before her, she hesitated, unsure if it was safe to eat, but the hunger in her stomach outweighed fear. The first spoonful was warm, bland yet comforting. She looked at him, expecting reprimand, scorn, or cruelty, but instead, he simply ate his own meal, occasionally glancing at her to ensure she was okay. After dinner, the fire crackled and the room fell into a quiet lull. Lyra could hear the faint hum of machines outside, the rhythm of a human settlement living and working even in the frozen wilderness. She tried to speak, her voice small and hesitant. "I thank you," she murmured. Eli nodded, acknowledging her words without expecting more. The night stretched on, long and quiet. Lyra lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind battering the walls. Her mind was a storm of doubt, confusion, and unfamiliar feelings. She had been sold to a human, yet nothing about him matched the warnings she had been fed all her life. There was no cruelty, no greed, no chains. Instead, there was kindness, and it unsettled her more than any threat ever had. Hours later, a loud crack of thunder shook the house. Lyra bolted upright, her heart hammering. She had not realized how alone she had felt until now, how exposed. Her body trembled as fear coursed through her. Before she could gather her courage, the door to her room opened and Eli stepped inside. He was calm, his eyes steady. "It's all right," he said softly, moving closer. "It's just a storm." "You're safe here." She shrank back instinctively, unsure of what he would do next. Instead, he simply wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, warm and protective. The human's touch was gentle, respectful, nothing like the harsh grips she had experienced in her past. She felt a shiver of confusion. Relief and fear mingled, twisting together. They sat together in silence, the only sound the fire's crackle and the wind's howl. Lyra's silver eyes met his human gaze, and for the first time, she felt a strange understanding. Two beings, different in every way, yet both alone, both broken, both longing for something they had not realized was possible. Trust. The storm raged on outside, but inside the small farmhouse, a fragile bond began to form. Lyra's mind wandered back to the day she was sold, the harsh words of her own family, the cold calculations of alien traders. Every expectation she had carried was shattered. This human did not treat her as property. He treated her as a person. Sleep finally came, hesitant and uneven. Lyra dreamed of vast violet skies, of her mother who had never smiled, of a world that had rejected her. And beneath it all, a new thought stirred. Maybe, just maybe, she had found someone who could see her for more than her bloodline, her status, or her usefulness. The next morning, Eli woke early, preparing breakfast while Lyra watched quietly. Her fingers itched to help, to prove herself useful. But she hesitated, unsure if her presence was welcome beyond the chores he had already assigned. He noticed her lingering glance and smiled gently. "You can help if you want," he said simply. "No rush, no pressure." Together they worked around the small house, fixing broken tools and preparing the few machines that kept the settlement alive. Lyra discovered that she had a natural affinity for machinery, her delicate hands moving with precision and confidence. She had never been encouraged to learn, never been allowed to touch more than the simplest toys. Here her skills were appreciated, valued, even praised. By mid-afternoon she was exhausted but satisfied. She sat by the fire again, her mind buzzing with a mix of amazement and disbelief. The human who had purchased her was not cruel, not greedy, not uncaring. He was steady, kind, patient, and something inside her, something she had thought dead, began to stir. As night fell again, Lyra found herself unable to sleep. She walked the small halls of the house, her steps quiet on the metal floor. She peered out the window at the frozen landscape, at the small settlement that seemed so alive despite the cold. Her eyes caught the light of the moon reflecting off the snow, and a pang of longing twisted in her chest. Eli stirred in the living room and noticed her pacing. Without a word, he came to stand beside her at the window. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "I'm not used to." "Kindness," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Humans do not usually treat me this way." He glanced at her, understanding in his eyes. "Maybe you just haven't met the right ones," he said softly. His words were simple, but they carried a weight she had never encountered. Acceptance, acknowledgement, the possibility of a new life. For the first time, Lyra felt something shift within her. She had expected fear, punishment, orders, or pain. Instead, she found warmth, safety, and a human who saw her not as a commodity, but as a being with worth. The night stretched long and silent, but for the first time, Lyra did not feel the crushing weight of loneliness. She felt hope. The first night together was nothing like she imagined. It was quiet, simple, yet profound, a stolen moment of trust between two lonely souls, one human and one alien, whose paths had crossed by chance, or fate. And as the fire dwindled to embers and the storm outside softened into a gentle wind, both Eli and Lyra felt the first glimmer of a connection that could change their lives forever. Captain Alex Harper had seen many battles. He had faced alien raiders, stormed enemy ships, and survived countless ambushes that would have ended most human lives. Yet nothing had prepared him for the invitation to the Intergalactic Council. The Council was a gathering of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, an assembly that only observed humanity from a distance until now. They had heard stories of human soldiers' courage, ingenuity, and stubbornness. To their surprise, Alex had been selected as one of the representatives, a human soldier given the rare chance to interact directly with species that had technologies and abilities beyond imagination. When Alex arrived, he found a grand hall floating in orbit above a glowing gas giant. Ships of every shape and size hung suspended in space outside, connected by translucent energy bridges. The hall itself shimmered with colors he had never seen, walls alive with moving lights that seemed almost conscious. Alien delegates watched him carefully, their eyes measuring, calculating. Alex's uniform, though simple compared to their ceremonial robes, carried the weight of human achievement, and he walked with steady confidence. Captain Harper, said a tall, multi-limbed alien named Zorath, his voice a harmony of several tones. You have been chosen as a representative of your species. As a reward for your service and skill, you may select a companion from our assembly. Alex blinked. He had expected challenges, combat tests, or complex negotiations. He had not expected this. He glanced at the line of alien girls before him. Some were tall and armored with metallic skin that gleamed in the light. Others were slim, their movements graceful as though they were sculpted to perfection. Their eyes reflected the intelligence of entire civilizations. But his attention was drawn to one of them who seemed ordinary. She was larger than the others, her skin a soft shade of amber. Her movements were deliberate, not flashy. She adjusted a small piece of machinery at her feet, humming quietly to herself, ignoring the gazes of the council and other soldiers. Her name, he learned, was Grola. Alex felt a pang of curiosity. While the others were performing, showcasing strength, agility, or beauty, Grola quietly solved problems that no one noticed. A flicker of admiration crossed his mind. The council spoke again, expecting a choice. Alex studied the group, sensing the weight of expectation. To pick one of the flashy aliens would be easy and predictable, but Alex did not see value in predictability. He approached Grola. I choose her, he said simply. A silence fell over the room. The other delegates raised their eyes, and some whispered in their alien tongues. Her? Zorath asked, astonishment in every tone. Why her, Captain Harper? She does not display the strengths or beauty our council values. Alex met Grola's gaze. She looked up at him, surprised, but there was no fear in her eyes. Only a quiet curiosity. She's intelligent, Alex said. She notices things others miss. She solves problems without waiting for orders. She helps others quietly. I value those qualities. The council murmured again, their alien voices mixing in confusion. No human had ever spoken like this before. To them, appearance, power, and spectacle defined worth. Alex's choice was different. Grola's cheeks colored slightly. A shade of soft rose across her amber skin. She was unused to attention, and certainly unused to someone noticing her abilities before her appearance. Slowly she nodded. Thank you, she said softly. Alex smiled. We'll need each other if this council's expectations are more than they seem. The council allowed no further discussion. The pair were escorted to a private training and living module aboard the council's station, a place designed for comfort, strategy, and observation. Alex and Grola entered a room filled with equipment, both human and alien. There were weapons with unfamiliar energy signatures, holographic displays projecting simulations of distant worlds, and small robotic aids that hovered silently, waiting to serve. Your selection surprises everyone, said a holographic assistant. You are expected to fail to understand the true potential of your companion. Alex shrugged. I've never understood what expected means. We'll see what she can do. For the first time, Grola allowed herself a small smile. She had never had anyone believe in her before. Many dismissed her because of her size and quiet demeanor. Humans rarely saw the obvious, and apparently this human saw everything. Training began the next day. Other soldiers focused on flashy combat drills, speed exercises, and displays of telekinetic skill. Alex and Grola focused differently. He observed, she adapted. They practiced teamwork exercises designed to simulate battlefield unpredictability. Where others failed to respond to unexpected events, Grola remained calm, assessing, repairing broken equipment, redirecting energy flows, and suggesting tactical adjustments. Her solutions were not glamorous, but they were effective. In simulations, Alex noticed that their small team completed objectives faster, and with fewer mistakes than teams relying solely on raw power. Every time a device malfunctioned, Grola fixed it. Every time a trap threatened the simulation, she predicted it before it activated. One evening, after a long day of exercises, Alex and Grola sat together on a balcony overlooking the glowing expanse of the gas giant. The stars sparkled above them, but the light of the planet below reflected in their eyes. You know, Alex said, I think the Council doesn't understand what makes humans strong. They measure power differently. Grola tilted her head, curious. How do you see strength? Ability to think, to adapt, to value the right thing, Alex said. Power isn't just about muscle or energy. It's about knowing when to act and when to wait. And it's about trust. I trust you to notice things others miss. That's why I chose you. Grola's fingers brushed a small panel on her arm, a gesture of nervous habit. I've never been noticed before. Everyone looked past me. Alex's expression softened. That ends now. You're not just another reward. You're my teammate. That matters more than anything else here. As the days passed, the two continued their training. Other soldiers occasionally sneered or whispered. Some doubted Alex's choice, assuming he would fail, assuming Grola would be useless. But every challenge confirmed what Alex already knew. She was exceptional. Her intelligence, calmness, and creativity made her indispensable. Their final training test came sooner than expected. The council designed a simulation meant to test teamwork and ingenuity. They placed Alex and Grola on a simulated battlefield filled with traps, malfunctioning machinery, and unpredictable enemy patterns. Other soldiers relied on their flashy skills, rushing forward, often getting trapped or slowed by complications. Alex and Grola moved differently. They observed first, analyzed, and planned. When machinery failed, Grola fixed it immediately. When traps activated, Alex responded based on her guidance. Together, they navigated the battlefield efficiently, completing objectives while avoiding unnecessary risks. When the simulation ended, a message flashed across the central display: highest efficiency achieved. The council's reaction was instantaneous. Shock, confusion, and even grudging respect spread across the delegates. Alex's choice was vindicated. Grola, usually quiet, allowed herself a proud smile. She looked at Alex, silently acknowledging that he had seen her value all along. In private, Alex looked at her and said, "We'll face more than simulation soon. Real missions won't be this easy, but if we trust each other, there's nothing we can't handle." Grola nodded, a spark of confidence in her eyes. She had never felt so recognized, so capable. With Alex, she realized that strength wasn't defined by appearance or spectacle. It was defined by insight, courage, and the quiet ability to make a difference. And for the first time, Alex felt that his choice, the one that had shocked the council, was more than a reward. It was a partnership that could redefine what it meant to be a human soldier in a galaxy that had underestimated humanity for far too long. The stars outside the balcony seemed to shimmer brighter that night, as if acknowledging the beginning of a journey that neither human nor alien could have predicted. A journey where intelligence, loyalty, and insight mattered more than any physical display of power. A journey that would prove to the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon was not muscle or energy, but judgment, trust, and the ability to see value where others did not. And so, in the quiet hum of the council station, a human soldier and a fat alien girl began to write a story that would surprise everyone, including themselves.